Welcome back to Happening Now. 8 more suspects caught in anti-terror raids in France and Belgium. The raids in southern France detaining 5 people suspected of involvement in a jihadist branch, which French officials call very organized and dangerous. Now, those raids in France and Belgium come 3 weeks after the deadly Charlie Hebdo attack in Paris, and as France urges its European partners to help fight terror financing with new measures to make transactions more transparent.
So militants reportedly with allegiance to ISIS are claiming credit for today's deadly attack in Libya at a luxury hotel in the capital city of Tripoli. Officials there say at least 9 people were killed when gunmen stormed the Corinthia Hotel on the Mediterranean coast. The attack also included a car bomb. Joining us now, a man with vast military experience as well as a deep knowledge of Iraq and the Middle East, retired Lieutenant Colonel Bill Cowan. He's made a total of 20 trips to Iraq, 7 of those during the war. He is a founding member of the Intelligence Support Activity, the Pentagon's most classified special mission unit. He is a Fox News military analyst. So this hotel attack, are you convinced that this was ISIS or ISIS inspired?
Well, it's hard to tell, John. They're claiming that they're ISIS-inspired, and there's no doubt that ISIS is out there trying to gather all these little Islamist groups that it can to come to their cause. So it's reasonable to assume that it's correct that they were ISIS-inspired. Probably not ISIS-directed, but ISIS-inspired.
But this is taking place in Libya. The White House has pointed to Libya as a success story from the standpoint of American policy.
Yes, they have, John. They did call it a success story, and it's probably the most failed state on the globe right now, with Syria, maybe a close second. There's factional tribes, there's factional Islamist groups, there's at least 2 entities that claim they are the legitimate government. Some of these tribes and Islamist groups are fighting each other. It's a very, very dangerous place to be. Most Westerners are not there right now for obvious reasons, this attack being one. And frankly, John, there's things going on almost every day over there where people are being killed by one group or another.
You have 2 governments essentially fighting for control of that place.
Yes, you do. One of them has clear alignment with Islamist groups. The other one has some of the people in the former legislature who have joined it. They're in 2 separate locations. And again, the United Nations is trying to broker some kind of deal between those 2 groups and, in fact, many of the other insurgent elements and other elements out there, tribes included, to bring some kind of stability to Libya. But I'd say it's all a long way off. And as long as you have these radicals, and incidentally, there's a lot of Libyans alongside members of ISIS fighting in Iraq and Syria right now, as long as you have these kinds of entities out there that are radical, you can't control without force, it's going to take a long time before things stabilize. Much as it's going to take a long time before they stabilize in Iraq or Syria.
Yeah, well, if ISIS is claiming the credit for that hotel attack, it raises the question, are we winning the battle against ISIS? There was a huge victory for Kurdish troops and the U.S.-led coalition. ISIS was pushed out of Kobani, that strategically important town on the border of Turkey and Syria. The Kurds even replacing the dreaded ISIS flag with their own yellow banner. We see it flying there. But does it mean that the tide is turning against ISIS, or are they is it just, you know, squishing jello? They're moving somewhere else, like, for instance, Tripoli.
Oh, I like the way you said that, squishing jello, John. I mean, clearly Kobani is a very symbolic victory for the Kurdish forces, for the coalition forces. A lot of coalition airstrikes in there, as you well know, and also there have been some successes in Diyala province in Iraq. But I think what we really see here is that ISIS was trying to bite off more than it can chew at one time. It's going to cause ISIS, these victories against ISIS are going to cause them to pull back a little bit, to consolidate. Heather was just talking about those arrests in Belgium and France. Of course, the French incident 3 weeks ago was al-Qaeda affiliated, but the Belgium arrests were all related to ISIS. So these recent arrests in Belgium may also be more of the ISIS cells that are out there trying to establish themselves in various places around the world.
So you think they were, as a military organization, stretched too thin?
stretched much too thin, John. They had so much resounding success, in such quick order that they just went too far out there, a little bit reminiscent of Hitler in World War II, pushing his forces all the way to Moscow, going much too fast, and then finding his supply lines cut off. They had the same problem with ISIS. They extended themselves, and as they tried to resupply their forces, we had our air power on top of them, trying to get any of those convoys, any of those movements between big cities and other cities eliminated. So ISIS has probably learned a big lesson here. That lesson is going to cause them to consolidate. They still have about 14 million people under their control. They're still almost a nation state with a full-up economy running, producing oil. Oil prices are down. That hurts them just a little bit. There's a lot of factors to play with ISIS, but I'd say there's one thing for certain, John. ISIS is not about to go away anytime in the short term.
Well, we've got U.S. and other coalition forces in the air taking them on. Is that campaign, limited as it has been, is it proving effective?
Well, I think it's marginally effective, and it certainly played a role here in Kobani. And I'd say it's likely that, what happened over time, either the Kurds themselves in Kobani figured out how to work with the coalition forces in bringing in airstrikes, or I'd even go so far as to say there were some U.S. or British or Australian or Canadian special forces people on the ground there with some of those Kurds helping coordinate airstrikes, because good precision airstrikes are going to be the key to pushing ISIS back. And if we don't have good airstrikes based on good targeting on the ground, good intelligence, we're going to have some success, but not the kind that we wish we'd have.
Lieutenant Colonel Bill Cowan, our Fox News military analyst. Thanks.
You were just talking about Libya. We're going to stay there for a moment after the break. We have some brand new developments in the Benghazi terror attack investigation. Thousands of never-before-released documents being sent to Congress, but political infighting continues to disrupt the Benghazi Special Committee. We will have the very latest. And a Senate committee moving forward with a plan to impose more sanctions on Iran in defiance of the White House, plus the emotional ceremony marking 70 years since the liberation of one of the most notorious Nazi concentration camps.
You just got a big bump in miles, so this is a great opportunity for an upgrade. Sound good? Great. Because you're not you, you're a whole airline. And it's not a ticket you're upgrading, it's your entire operations. From